All right, you guys, it is the Outrun Show here with Travis.
Jesse.
Justin.
And we are having our, it's early, but Halloween episode. We're a couple days early. So this is a super spooky episode of the Outrun Show. We're here to scare you into training more.
Is that what we're here for?
Scare you into training more.
Probably not that spooky, but we have some awesome stories to tell and an awesome topic for you today on the Outrun Show. We need a spooky theme.
Yes.
Is that good?
It just sounded Chinese.
That was pretty good.
Martial art movie to me.
No, you knew what that was, right?
Bong, bong, bong.
It was, it's from a show. It's
It's a show. It's a TV show. It's the X-Files.
X-Files?
Yeah, there it
It's
is.
X-Files theme.
Yeah, you did get pretty close to that.
I was going to say Twilight Zone, but it wasn't Twilight Zone. It's too.
No, it wasn't. But yeah, our deep roots in the spookies for Outrun, orange and dark background.
You know what's a great show to finish up on at Hulu is What We Do in the Shadows right about now. Have you guys been watching that?
Is
The
it
story
new?
about vampires living
the
in
show,
the flat.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but is it new?
This one's new. There was a
There's
movie.
the movie
and
that
then
we've
this is-
always
yeah.
loved, and then there's the show. I haven't watched the
Yeah,
show.
the show is pretty good.
I don't know how you guys like subscribe to like so many different streaming platforms, which is why we were talking about streaming last time. And I'm like,
We actually didn't get to
I'm a
streaming
one
last time.
streaming platform at a time kind of guy. Like
So what's
just Netflix, and then it's Amazon Prime, and then maybe I'll add on HBO while I cancel the other two. But
every time we roll up on a holiday, my wife goes like in a full binge mode for whatever holiday movies. So she actually probably watches movies, 3 months out of the year or something like that straight. And when Halloween comes, she starts watching all the spooky movies. But this year, there's been so many good, like, Los Spookies movies or shows that we haven't even had to go to a bunch of movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, between HBO and Hulu and some on Netflix. I don't know if I've had anything on Netflix that was related. Yeah, it's been a
I think
couple.
Stranger Things is Netflix's best, like, scary one for me.
Spooky one.
Yeah.
is it? I think that's more like suspense than scary, right?
I'm scared of it.
You finished it?
I couldn't finish it. I could probably go back now. I
You
think I can go
finish
back
it?
now. Man, it's
It's
tough.
like it's too much.
Too
'cause Travis
real.
grew up like
in that era. Yes, it's too real. Like I was doing fine, and then there was the
in a rural town. where everybody was scared of Russia.
ranch house. Yeah, rural town with a bunch of like, what is it? What's that called? When people are afraid of communists.
I'm not gonna say anything
What,
because I didn't want to
Red
make up.
Scare? Or?
Yeah, Red Scare, but there's another name.
Xenophobic?
No, yeah, it's kind of like that, but there's another name, a term for someone who was a political person who was anti-communism and created this Red Scare, but they call it anyway. Colin, can you go?
Oh, like McCarthy?
Yeah, McCarthyism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The guy with his book?
yep. Boom.
Yeah.
So we got the McCarthyism in the ranch house with the like olive drab shag carpet, and then they start doing the whole thing with the wall. Like, nope.
The paint in the wall was pretty rough.
Nope.
In the first season?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. I was like, I can get this. I'm in this. Cool. Yay. Eggos. I loved Eggos. And it was like, what in the wall? Nope.
Egos and powers?
Nope. Nope. I'm out. I have walls. Can relate. So that's spooky. We've got Lovecraft County, right?
Country, yeah.
Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
Also
Oh,
has
rough.
some spooky moments, but super interesting. And then we were watching Raised by Wolves, which has some like spooky parts, I think, but it's very suspense and also a science fiction.
It's sci-fi, right?
Mhm.
So rather than
It's
like,
definitely-
just horror suspense.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I haven't watched either.
Maybe get
I
to
really
the
want to, but I
Last
don't like.
episode, you might get your
Okay.
scares in.
Oh,
On Raised by
man.
Wolves?
Yeah.
Stop! Don't tell me no more spoiler alerts.
I haven't watched either shows, but I don't think I'm going out on a branch saying Raised by Wolves is definitely not appropriate for
I
children.
don't think
right?
any of these
None
are.
of these are.
Lovecraft, I'm assuming is not, but again,
No, not at all.
In my opinion, Jurassic Park is barely. Like
Dude,
the
I
first
still have
First
nightmares
ones are
about
pretty
T-Rexes. So I
T-Rexes?
just had one the other day.
Dude, the whole point of Jurassic Park was that you're supposed to be afraid of the Velociraptors, not the T-Rex.
No, it's always the T-Rex for sure.
Yeah, the T-Rex is there because they need something big and animated, but it's obviously the Velociraptors that are the real enemy.
Yup, in the kitchen.
In the
Never
kitchen.
had a bad dream about Velociraptors.
What? T-Rex isn't even that scary.
Always
The eye
T-Rex.
thing, maybe, and
You
the
can't
snout.
even see if you don't move and all that.
Oh
jazz.
my
Well, the other one was a
God.
parkour one, and I was very surprised that this T-Rex was keeping up with me while I was parkouring.
Wait,
Very surprised.
you had a dream about? I had a dream about monsters. The monsters chasing me from the Halloween edition of Apex Legends. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Those
are
like-
actually
Oh,
pretty
good
intimidating.
luck.
I did okay. You know, I'm pretty good at like descents, and I don't know what happened when I got to the bottom of the hill, but I felt pretty good about running from them through the forest.
There's no fall damage in Apex, so.
I didn't have fall damage in the dream,
Oh, okay.
so that was why I was able to get away. Yeah, it was the yeet down. That was really spooky. And actually, I got scared on Apex a couple times because did you played it with the new?
Uh-huh.
So like you open the containers.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you open the loot containers and like
Little
the guy
spider
jumps
runs
out
up
and I was
and
like,
jumps
ah, God. And then I got hit twice by one too, and I opened one right next to it, and then the spider jumped out, and I was like, ah! It was so frustrating. So, it's Halloween. What do you guys? We've been talking about costumes, but do you guys have ideas? Do you have takes on your costume?
I think I'm doing my hot dog one, and Lindsay's going to do another condiment. So I think she's on mustard right now.
Mustard and a
Mustard.
hot dog.
Yeah.
Spicy mustard.
Wow, that's a good one.
But we really wanted
Yeah,
to
it's
do have you guys seen Eurovision on Netflix?
Uh-huh.
We really wanted to do Eurovision where I was Lars and she was the female singer lady.
Oh,
But the
that
costume
would've
is
been
just so
great.
extravagant.
It's
in
it's
Eurovision.
hard to
Like,
notice.
It's so big. So
And like at some point you go so deep into the costume that you're doing cosplay now.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
Which is fun.
Which is fun.
Which is fun.
Which
I
is
just don't
fun.
know
It's just
how-
like that's a part-time job, right?
That's hard.
That's serious, yeah.
Once you get into October.
Mhm.
So I don't have a costume. I love Halloween. I think it's so much fun. But it always sneaks up on me.
Yeah.
Like I'm always doing
It's the first
something
holiday.
else, and then I'm like, oh crap! It's like it's Halloween, and I haven't planned it. And then I'm like, oh, I'll start thinking about it. And then I start looking at like costumes, and I'm not going to build a costume because that's not me. I'm not a craftsy kind of guy. And so then I look at costumes, and I see how expensive they are, and then I just go back to playing video games, and I forget about it again. But I always love Halloween. Like I love seeing everybody else dress up.
Mhm.
I love
So
like,
fun.
I would love like decorating a house, and I'm certain that like when I retire, that will be a thing. Like October will be just me decorating the house and like wearing costume all October. But I just ain't got the time for it right now. So
Yeah, I love it. It's so cool because everybody dresses up and it feels very surreal. It's a lot. In some ways, it's our holiday here, which I think we should probably double down on maybe. But the wait till the pandemic's over. Or that could be a theme.
Yeah.
Too soon.
a pandemic Halloween.
Yeah, too soon.
Yeah,
Too soon.
for those listening that maybe are just tuning in, we always have like a parkour Halloween event where we set up like challenges and stuff in the gym. So we have like funny, silly challenges, and then we have hard, like tricky ones, and then sometimes we do like a skill comp for the kids. So everybody comes in their costumes and they run this like skill competition, and they try these silly challenges, and then we just do like a jam afterwards. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, now given the context of COVID, we're not able to do such laissez-faire events like that. So
That's a cool one though. We have such a good theme for it.
next year after everybody's like vaccinated and we're all cured and like
Yeah.
it's no longer like a major scare.
Yeah.
We can do a pandemic one.
You said it was the first holiday. I've never heard it described that way before.
Yeah, right. You got the three. So you got Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I feel like I'm always
Triple
prepared
header,
for
yeah.
Thanksgiving and
The triple
Christmas.
header.
But Halloween is always like it's just 8 months, 10 months Yeah. since your last holiday, and it just runs right into you.
Well,
So.
July.
Yeah,
right?
4th of
4th,
July.
I consider that one.
Unless you're talking about like religious holidays. I don't know. 4th of July might be a religious holiday for some people. I'm not sure. So costume. I wanted to do. I think I'm gonna. And I was I've been doing this continuously, but I had been doing Johnny from the Karate Kid series when that was cute. Like there weren't many people doing it. I think I first did it in 2017, but it's like the only costume I have just sitting around the house. So it's either that or redoing Power Rangers from last year. Oh, but I Amazon Primed my costume last year and then sent it back.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that immoral?
Yeah, no, I remember you telling. Yeah. Yeah, I remember because we had the Halloween party and Justin was drinking through the
mask.
Oh, yeah.
Because the costume package said like can drink through.
Yeah.
Like what?
Dude, you were just ahead of the times, dude. You had a mask on before, masks were in.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, I remember. I think I still have a picture of that actually. That's you drinking through that mask.
Yep, it's true.
So, next year we're gonna have to. I think we have to build our own costumes.
I wanted to do the skeletons this year and have us all do the skeleton costumes from Karate Kid, where they had the Cobra Kai in the skeleton costumes. That would have been awesome. I looked them up online though, and they were really expensive. Obviously,
if it's branded, it's gonna be pricey. I feel like what we do is take like one of the gangs from the Warriors. What was that? That was an 80s film, right?
I think so. Might even be 70s. I don't know.
It's an older film, but take like one of the gangs from there, like the baseball gang or something like that. And that's an easy one. Because then you could just face paint and buy a couple of props.
Yeah.
You're done.
That's a good one.
Well, yeah.
I like Avatar theme too.
Avatar theme
wouldn't be too bad.
Like
they're gonna be
the Last
Appa?
Airbender or the purple people on Planet Pandora.
Oh, definitely not the blue people.
Last Airbender.
Oh yeah, the blue.
Last Airbender.
And you're gonna be Appa, right?
I would definitely do an Appa costume.
Yeah.
With just an extra set of limbs, like right here.
Justin, the giant air bison.
In a heartbeat. Yeah.
That would be pretty good.
That sounds great. I'll look for it.
So spookiest, we were talking about spooky stuff. Spookiest story. You got a spooky story for training or exploring?
So I've always tried to get myself in very spooky situations, but they always ended up not being spooky once I'm done with it, or even during it. So, if you're from Fort Collins, we have a haunted house called Strauss Cabin over like on Drake and Ziegler.
Now it's an upper middle income subdivision.
I know, that was it.
But now that's haunted. Sorry if you live in Buckingham.
Or maybe it was further down. It's Strauss Cabin Road, and I'm pretty sure it's on that roundabout. You just keep going straight, and that was always a little legend around the high schools that you had to go in there. And so on senior year we went in there, and it's a tiny little cabin. It's got this super big dead tree that someone hung himself in, and it's all chained up. So there's just a single 9-foot tall fence around the whole thing when we went. And so we got our high school group together and went exploring in there. But of course you go in there and you don't know what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
you just I guess just to be in there. Of course you go in there and there's pentagrams all over the place, and someone's left a little skull, a little cat skull or something. It was probably fake or 3D printed or something. But yeah,
they had 3D printers back then.
I don't know.
I don't think they did.
Maybe it was real. I was gonna stop making it up. You don't want to mess with any spirits in there. But I don't know. I'm always going in there, and then I get in there, and it just makes me laugh that there are people who go into these places and do pentagrams and spend their time. I feel like they're setting it up for us so that we can have a fun stage time, right? Because that's what I would do. I'd climb to the top of some abandoned building and leave a message there, and I wouldn't do a spooky one. But and that also reminds me of Loveland and the sugar cane factory. Yeah. Yes, and what was the message?
It was
there's a part where
Sugar Beet,
Sugar Beet Factory, the abandoned sugar. This is some Scooby-Dooby-Doo stuff. The abandoned Sugar Beet Factory next to the old gym, night mission.
Yep.
To the factory.
Yeah, it's locked down now. They got a legit fence that opens, and they have motion lights. Before it was a janky old chain link fence that wasn't even closed. It was it had a chain on it, but the chain was 4 feet wide, so you could literally just walk through it.
Oof. So the sugar cane factory, and then there was some sort of thing in there.
That one, yeah.
So there's Colorado used to do a bunch of sugar factories from beets, But apparently, in the process of making that, it's highly flammable.
Ooh.
And what had happened is the Loveland one caught on fire and had a big fire. I'm not sure if anybody died, but you can look it up. And when that happened, there was another one in Longmont that was either run by the same company, but they also did like the same sugar from beets, and they shut down. So we actually have 2 of those sugar beet factories that are shut down. They're both very cool. The Loveland one was just more like accessible.
Exploded.
Yeah, and it was like concrete walls blown out. It looked like an explosion. I'm not sure how much of it was the actual fire and explosion or how much of it was just like decay.
Yeah.
No, it was never demoed because whoever owns a lot just bounced off to whatever, Bali or something like that, was just enjoying his freedom.
Dangerous to demo it at this point because there's floors that you can't get to that have the stairs. Just if you can see like 4 floors down.
Yeah. And so you go in there and there's and there's even a basement and you're like writing messages. I remember when we'd go in there like with our group after classes late at night, we'd go in there and you'd see like a hole in the ground that goes to the basement where the stairs like used to be and crumbled, and it would just be like down here with an arrow. And you'd be like, okay. And so you crawl down there, and jump down there, and then you find like a room that has like a little mattress and has like messages all on the wall and stuff like that.
It was like death to enter here or something like that. It was like it didn't even make sense the way that it was written. So it was like just probably some guy who's like, I need to write something scary so no one wakes me up.
Yeah, it was definitely just it was like rabid wolves down here. Like, wolves aren't even here, buddy.
I was told there would be wolves.
Yeah.
There aren't. Can I get my money back?
But it was they had like a sky bridge between the towers. That was super cool.
Yeah, a little conveyor belt or something to transfer.
Yeah, so like you'd refine and then it'd pass down to this other chute or whatever. And so you'd go up through the chute and like walk up there and you could look out and like the walls, it's made out of like sheet metal and, steel. But the sheet metal is like falling off. So you're like walking up the conveyor belt and you can just see out and you're up like 60 feet just looking down. No like railing, nothing, because people weren't necessarily meant to walk up the conveyor belt.
No.
But
that is
so cool.
That's pretty spooky. Did that so parkour helps or hurts?
Helps once you're in there, but hurts in that you want to go there in the first place.
Right.
I know. Yeah.
Like parkour is definitely born out of like exploration and wanting to find these kinds of places anyways, to being like, there's a floor that has no stairwell because it's fallen out and it looks scary and I want to know what's on that floor.
It's like, literally a level that you can only reach with skill, like in a video game. But then you get up there and you're I would want like my daughter to have the skills to be able to handle that, but I definitely wouldn't want her in that sugar factory. It's the weirdest like the dichotomies there.
Yeah.
Like want you to be capable, but
just
don't
went
want
to
you to
a little haunted corn maze, and they had like this little setup, and it was you rode around in a tractor with paintball guns and you shot zombies in this obstacle course.
What? Those poor workers.
I was like,
When
wow,
was this?
This is what normal people do to get scared. This sounds way easier and more fun. Like I get to shoot just random people in the zombie. This
Are they
is
actual
over...
like people running
Yeah.
around? Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I can drive around with a paintball gun and shoot people and not
It's like
go to
Iowa
jail.
again, huh?
This is Iowa all over again,
This
right?
is in Longmont. This is one of the first, like one of the largest corn mazes I've ever seen. You know
How
what
much
it
was
is?
it to do that?
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't check on it, but because I just gone there for the maze and the haunted house part of it. But I was like, wow, that's
cool. It's a good social distancing thing too.
Yeah.
Stay back.
Okay, spooky stories. I bought a house in Iowa that was built in 1917.
Nice.
And it had an attic that
Yuck.
with a door, right, and stairs up to it. So it wasn't even like crawl up it with a ladder, right? It was like
Was it one of those like
just on the second floor. There's like a horseshoe shape, and in the middle of it is a door at the middle of the horseshoe, and it goes up in a spiral stairs to the attic.
That's cool.
And so I remember going up there when I first got it, and we were exploring the house. I just closed on it or whatever. It was needed a little bit of work. By little, I mean a lot. It had the boiler room in the basement, so it wasn't even like there's no like air. So it was definitely like in the middle of the night you get that clank, 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 boom, and then like those noises. So they're like, oh, we gotta check it out. And so we didn't have power one day. Me and a buddy decided, well, since this is really spookies, there's no power. We should explore the attic because the power's out, right? That's totally a horror movie thing to do. And so we climb up into the attic. There's also just stories about this place. The neighbor who lived there, the neighbor said he knew the owner who was several years prior, like in the 70s, and said he used to have he used to do a bunch of meditation and stuff. And one time he saw him levitating in the house. I do not believe this place.
Sweet.
And
I know, I was like, all right, worth it.
Were these one time I go
There's
over
some
and I saw the
residual levitation energy here.
He said he used to have dragons painted all over the house, like on the inside. And I'm like, there were all the walls were white. Somebody came by and just spray painted everything white.
Over the dragons?
Over the dragons. I was so upset.
Dude, they're probably like those Trogdor dragons.
Yeah, he's just in his better. So apparently they were good dragons, not Trogdor dragons. I don't know if they were like malevolent dragons, but I mean the art was apparently really good. And so we went up into the attic, and it's it's unfinished. It feels about 4 stories high because it's a very tall house, and there were these windows, these bay windows that look out over the neighborhood. It's like something you'd see someone just like scratching on the outside or something like that. And above the window was like we found that there was a loose board, right? So you're looking out the window and there's a loose board there, and we push it up and it opens, cold draft comes through, and then you're like, you shine your light, a little flashlight up there, and you're like, what the heck is kept up there? And so my friend kind of sticks his hand up there to feel around.
No.
And he feels something like cold and metal, so he kind of grabs it and pulls it down, and it was shell casings, like bullet shell casings.
Okay.
Just the casing?
The casings.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the heck is up, like bullet shell casings?
Yeah.
So it's about 2 foot by 2 foot, so you can kind of stick your head up and look on the inside. And so the only way to do that was to grab it, step up on a little step stool, and then peer as someone holds you up, because we didn't have any height. So one person's holding the other person up, and you're peering up over the top, and the light gets over and it just shines right against a skull.
Oh my god.
And we were like, pull me down, pull me down, pull me down. And then we ran and we just left it alone. And then we were like, there's no way.
You left it alone? You just continued to live in the house?
No, we came back at daylight. I like not dealing with that stuff at night.
So you just went to bed?
It was totally
After opening the sarcophagus?
After opening the sarcophagus. It was totally one of those traps like you're talking about where somebody left it. We went back there the next day in the daylight, and it was a plastic skull, but it was positioned right to scare the crap out of you. It must have been there for 30 years or 20 years or something like that. And there were some other odd spooky things up in there with it. Yeah, some bullet casings and some rounds that were unused, and just kind of this implication. But it was definitely a plastic skull. It was not a real human skull.
That's why I'm so happy we have cell phones now, because you just turn your camera on with a flash and you just
oh dude,
and then you watch the video and you're just oh yep, it's clear.
Yeah, because you record. So first do the swipe and then go down into warm lighting, and then be like, now we're gonna watch the video.
Watch the video and you're like, oh nope, that's a ghost.
Nope.
I'm out.
Yep.
Then you just leave.
Dude, if you
as opposed to poking your head up.
That would have been so fun with the cell phone thing, because you would have come downstairs with your friends and be like, all right, who wants to look at it? I'm not looking at it. Dude, there's a skull on it. No, you're making that up.
You could share that
in the future.
That experience.
Right.
With other people, secondhand.
Right. Oh, man.
Yeah, cell phone scaries. That's why now when you explore buildings, you bring your phone with you.
The cell phone scaries.
This reminds me of the ghost that we had in Loveland.
The Purple Man.
Purple Man, yeah. He opened my front door during our meeting.
Premiere, when we'd be in...
Purple Man, yeah.
Does he follow from location to location?
Dude, it's always been Purple Man.
But
where does his name
oh, that's... So, okay, I'll do that one, but I'm skipping timelines here.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Because in Premiere, we would always hear someone lifting weights and dropping them in their CrossFit side. When we were working out in the gymnastic side. And we always... And it would be late, 11, and we always hear weights dropped. And then we go over there. We always assumed it was the main coach over there working out. And then one time we were just like, who is lifting weights right now? And we went over there.
Yeah, it'd be like
light shut off.
It'd be later. It'd be like,
and it happened
like
on the
1
regular.
a.m.
Yeah,
We'd be out
Really?
there, and we'd go over there and be like, okay, it's 1 a.m. Who's like working out right now?
Oh my gosh.
And it'd just be empty.
Because that's CrossFitters, bro. They'll die and still come back and work out.
Yeah.
Pull in there like, gotta get my 2 a days. And the only way to get 2 workouts in is to work first one at midnight and the second one at.
But if I died, I could work out twice as much.
But, yeah. No, we had that ghost, and then we moved to the first Loveland gym, and then we got then we found the name for our ghost was the Purple Man.
So what's the origin story
So
for
we
Purple
had,
Man?
what was that lady above us? So we had that.
She was like
Really?
a crystal therapist.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Oh,
A
that's
spiritual-
right.
like a spiritual therapist, yeah. And so not crystal therapist. I only chatted with her. She
I
seemed
think
very
that
nice. She was
seems-
very nice, but
Mhm.
yeah, she was definitely into like.
That seems like
Spiritual
pretty direct. Like if you're a doctor, you're a doctor of crystals.
You're a crystal
So-
doctor.
Crystal doc.
But
All right, so exactly. So we
And
got
she had the office right above ours. So she
Yeah.
had windows, right, that looked into ours.
No, she didn't have any windows.
it
She
was
shared
sealed
a
off. The
right?
wall.
The
It
wall.
used to be able to. I think you could look over and into our unit,
Yeah.
but they put like
'Cause they used to
boards
be all
over.
the
Yeah,
one
it
unit.
boarded
Yeah.
over. That's what it was.
And so she again. So we were
Oh, this is Justin's story. Actually.
Oh yeah.
So in that first location, we didn't have a bathroom in our warehouse, our little shop.
Dude, that was
we,
Los Spookies.
We either had to go in the back of the shop, which is like an alley inside of the building, and it was like fluorescent bulbs, concrete floor, concrete walls, and you'd walk down this super dark hallway to get to a bathroom. The other one, that one was the scariest. The other one was upstairs through our
lobby.
our lobby door, and then you went upstairs, and there was a bunch of offices up there, but they were just as spooky. I felt like because the stairs creaked, the building. Was
Yeah,
old.
and it's like everybody rented out like a room.
yeah.
Like there were other people subleasing like those rooms, and the doors were always closed. And then there was just
Yeah,
like
that
one
was-
white noise machine that was just like.
The other fan.
And so you walk up there and you're just like there's like 30 doors around you, and
Yeah.
you're just like go
Yeah.
walk through.
And it took us 6 months to figure out that the thumping on the wall was that someone had an archery studio behind us
Oh
that
yeah,
we didn't even
I
know
forgot
about.
that. Yeah.
We'd be like, they'd be like, doom, doom. And I'm like, what is? I just let
And
it go.
it was so like faint.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it would be like after like customers left and we were closing up, you'd be like,
You also don't know that you're sitting there training and it's just some hopefully really good drywall that's stopping the arrow from coming. They get ready to do that Lachey and you lean forward and you just drop.
Yeah. It's also the same building where our landlord fell through our roof. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I
Right.
remember that
This
too.
was quite the janky building.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was- that was an interesting building, but yeah. So
Dude, startup life.
So Purple Man was the name given to our ghost by one of
By our
patients.
our spiritual therapist's neighbors,
Yeah.
patient.
Because I
What?
chose not to go to the scary bathroom. I go to the,
You
the
went to the
less
scary.
scary lobby bathroom, and I'm walking there, and one of there's a
Almost
couple. They're older, and as I'm walking up, the lady stops when she sees me, turns to the corner and looks up at the ceiling and lifts her hands like she's praising something, and she says, "The Purple Man's here," and the husband is standing right next to. He's looking at me, and he's like, "Come on!" And she's like stuck on this wall with her hands up in the air, and she's just, "Oh, Purple Man!" She's
You never
keeps
heard
saying
this?
his name.
No, I didn't hear this.
And I have to walk by it, and I'm like, "Oh, we need to get out of this building, man." Because if you go to the other bathroom, the other coaches would shut off all the lights in the gym,
Because you get the switch.
turn on Michael Myers music, and then you'd come back into the gym, and it'd be pitch black with the Halloween music playing.
It was a ritual. If somebody went to that back bathroom,
I do
you were
remember
like,
that.
"Oh, guys, drive someone to the back bathroom." So we'd all sprint, click off the light, go to the stereo. You plug in the music, you turn it on, and then Justin would do this all the time. He'd open the door and he'd be like, "Oh God." Because then what would happen is there's just a little bit light coming through the front door, right? Because it was a glass front door. So you have just one shaft of light. And so we'd always have like somebody crawl like QM across.
Yes.
And the goal was they always had to get to the lights
To
that were
the
at the front of the
lobby,
unit
yeah.
without somebody hitting you with some soft
It's
mat.
like parkour people are the best at being like spooky. Like we would be
Scary,
really
yeah.
good at like it's just a lot of work, but at like a haunted house or something like that. Can crawl on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Can do all that stuff. It's so creepy.
I forgot about the turning off the lights.
Yeah.
And that was like every time somebody went back there.
Yeah.
Right? And so now even here we joke about the Purple Man's getting an upgrade in the new gym. That's a
So Purple Man's he's followed us here too. Sometimes late at night you'll hear.
Yeah, you hear the little skimpers, but the ghost of CrossFitters Pass.
Yeah, he's Purple Man. Yeah, Purple Man must be yoked.
By now he's been training a long time, 7 years.
Purple Man.
Yeah, the other one that I'll end on before we go into the training topic is and you can go to this place. This is in Pingree Park. We had a friend. So Pingree Park is in the mountains. So in the mountains, this is great. This is a great Halloween story. They shut down campus for CSU, which Colorado State University has a campus 14 miles into the mountains in something that's called the Mummy Range.
That's like their mountain campus, right?
It's a mountain campus, but it doesn't operate during the winter because there's too much snow. So you drive up, and then sometimes people volunteer to stay there to make sure no one's on site, and they have to snowshoe in. So my friend did that, so we went with. We were like, oh, we want to go and stay. Candy and I did this, and so we go up with our buddy, and we park, and then we trek into the campus, and they make sure that like nothing's going on, like there's no whatever. You do take guns just because, I don't know, we could.
We're pretty far out there.
There's no guns on campus though, I don't think. So maybe we didn't take guns. Anyway,
Different
we didn't take guns is what I'm saying. And then so you get there, and there's like just a bunch of like, there's not heat and stuff. So it's like one room has heat, and there's no like running water. So you have to go to the little creek. Well, the creek's like one of those creeks that you would imagine like a bear just like living in, right? They're kind of down in a shallow glen, and then you like walk up to it, and you start pumping your water, and and then you just hear like the squeak, and then you hear rustling in the bushes, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm in the middle of nowhere here. And then you bring the water back, and then we decided to go out on a trek at night because it's called Pingree Park because it was homesteaded, and there was a cabin out in the middle of it that were the original homesteaders' cabin. Mm-hmm. And that cabin was occupied by the family, and a family had 2 twins. Well, there was a disease that went through, and it killed the 2 twins. But because the ground was frozen, they couldn't bury the twins. And probably because
probably just like dysentery.
I can't remember what it was, if it was cholera or something like that, or you could look it up on Wikipedia. They have a picture of the family. It looks about like what you'd expect it to look like. And so they kept the frozen bodies in the room during the winter because they couldn't bury. And also there's probably some psychological issues going on too when you lose your twins in the middle of the mountains in the Mummy Range.
And then you keep their frozen bodies in the next room?
Yes. So we decided we were going to go and check this place out.
No!
Yeah! Scooby-Dooby-Doo. So we go in, and you can kind of like, you could get in permissibly-ish, and we did that. We opened up. We didn't know that they kept the place completely like burnished as if, right? Because people can go and still visit that cabin, and we didn't know that. So the minute you go in, it's still got all like the old era things, and you step in and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is untouched. I'm going to see these people in here. And so it was super spooky because you're in the mountains, in the middle of the night, in the cold, in the Mummy Range, very far from people, 14 miles, and it's just you and some people you might trust. And so we came in, and they have all the pictures. Like all we had was like the backup flashlight, LED lights, things. They had all the pictures of the family, and they had the room that was the bedroom, and then they had the spookiest thing was this giant taxidermied bobcat. So you're just walking in, you come around the corner, and you get one of those like, teeth open, like mouth, like bobcats right in your face coming around the corner. I about lost it from that. That was the spookiest thing for that little trek. But yeah, so watch out for, haunted cabins in the mountains of Colorado.
The like campus students were like, yeah, we're gonna put this bobcat in here. Right at eye level.
It was straight up, and you come right around a corner into it. So anybody coming in just gets hit by the bobcat. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I love it.
All right, that's a pretty spooky story. You guys all Halloweened up now? You ready to go like have a good time? If we get rid of the snow, which makes no sense for Halloween.
It always snow on Halloween. What? Which is awful for the children though.
It is awful.
Wait till Halloween.
It's truly unfortunate.
Oh yeah.
but that's why you dress up as like, Chewbacca or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then you're nice and warm.
So we're gonna bleed into fear. Do you like that segue?
Yeah.
I like that.
Stuff just comes, man. When you become a dad, you're just like,
Those dad jokes just...
I consider my dad jokes pretty solid. So,
Gotta ask Noah about that.
so, right, exactly. The fear. So that's the training topic today, and so we're gonna talk about how we deal with fear. What is fear for us? And obviously, when we're training, we run into scenarios where we're afraid. This is parkour. I mean, some people will talk about even just doing CrossFit and being afraid to jump on the box. Well, we take that and scale it up 100 times over, right? So fear is a major component in parkour training in that it's sort of runs adjacent to confidence. And a lot of people will do parkour to gain confidence or do parkour because they're unreasonably confident.
Yeah.
So fear and training.
I've definitely met some like parkour athletes that I'm like, whatever part of your like amygdala that handles fear doesn't exist. It's not there. They're just like,
There's at best
wow,
reason.
like people were like shooting at you, and there was like a rabid dog down there, and like you were landing on a janky old building, and you were just like, oh yeah, I got it. And then that's like some confidence, right? There's a difference between like somebody who's like, I think I got this. I'm gonna dedicate to it. I'm gonna go for it. And people who are just like, hiya. I've definitely met a couple of people that are just.
So where does confidence become disillusionment, right?
That's a good question.
Or where does it become courage?
I think you have
confident. Yeah, I guess courage versus like recklessness. Maybe?
Well, I think the difference between courage and confidence might be
courage is doing it in spite of being afraid of it. Right?
Application too, right? Yeah. Like the context. Context is what I'm looking for.
So yeah, I don't know where that line goes because it shifts for everybody, but
yeah, it's definitely a spectrum. Like I've seen people who I would have sworn have no fear in parkour and who've done things that I'm like, I can't even watch you do it because I feel like that's so terrifying. And I've watched people who have almost died doing things at that height.
Like the Oleg Cricket guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm mainly talking about the Boulder side crew. So Dylan, Brandon, even some of the newer coaches right now. Nick Ortiz on Instagram, which is Nick Ortiz.
Nick Ortiz does some scary stuff.
So watching those guys, I always thought they didn't have fear, but when I talked to Dylan about it, they are just very good at identifying the fear the second it shows up and then immediately deciding what to do with that that state. So they either choose to fight it or flight, right, or choose not to do the move. And the decision is solid and it's not hesitation, which is my biggest problem when I first started parkour. Was I just flip back and forth between the two. Yes, I want to do the backflip, and then right before I do the backflip, I switched to flight, and I'd be like, no, I don't want to do the backflip. And then it gets so bad that I would just switch it in the middle of the backflip, and at the worst point, I'd say, no, I don't want to complete the backflip. So that is if you're like that, I feel like I never really identified that I was afraid and made a choice on what I was going to do with the fear. Whereas Dylan would look at something, immediately know he wanted to do it, and then start working on getting the fear out of his mind, out of that memory. Because once you get fear in your head and you let it sit there, it just becomes this super solid memory, and you just never forget it. Like fear is just such a strong, like addictive memory to have, and so you have to make a decision right away once you identify it. And which is nice because fear is very easy to identify. Your stomach immediately feels gross, right? And so like you're afraid. So make a decision on it, and then Dylan would just be like, all right, what do I need to do? He collects data after that. So he identifies the fear, then he would collect data. Can he do it? Has he done a jump similar before? Is he familiar with the takeoff and the landing and the materials, and does he feel confident that day? And so once he had those things, it immediately shut off. Once he identified and then collected the data on whether he could do it, it was there. He didn't have any fear after that, but it was a choice to make the fear and that memory of it. You have to fight against it.
So I think that's an appropriate level of confidence. Yep. And then courage may be more about in application, like the necessity of it and what it did to save someone or yourself or to make a moment happen, right? In a competition or something like that. But I also remember his, there was still mistakes. Like, the success ratio was obviously very high and optimal because he's very much considered parkour deity in some ways, right? What I'm thinking of is that Garage Kong to Cat that he almost peeled out on. His hand slips out.
5 stories high, something like that.
Yeah. There's a video out there. There's actually an entire video explaining the story and the build up to it. But this roof gap that almost went, atrociously wrong. So there's that. But sometimes I'm afraid for people who have like they come in and they're just gonna jump on a box, and I'm afraid for them. Yeah. So there is this like experience that gets acquired over time that gets you comfortable and familiar with like tougher scenarios. And it's like if you look at the difference between like if you watch people come on some of these TV shows, like the tag shows or the obstacle course shows, and you look at people who have all this experience, the viewer will make the assumption that it's just about confidence and some sort of like dissidence with preparation, meaning like somebody is just strong enough, they were a firefighter and so now they can do it. Like that's different than the skill that comes into parkour. When you watch somebody who's done parkour before, that they have a good relationship with fear, especially if they're at like the well-known team level, like Dylan with Merm or Store or any of like those people who produce content where you can bear witness to the craziness that they're exposed to sometimes. There's a lot of repetition in there, but there is something that they are disregarding some reason at some level. They say when they go to do it, it's no different than, walking across the street or something like that, but we can understand that there is an assumed risk there. So there's a couple approaches that I've seen taken, and one is like you can, in this measurement aspect, because we did Dylan's fear workshop. Remember that? We went to it? I can't remember if you went to it or not. Maybe.
He did not.
I don't think so.
So this is not in that particular scenario, but the tools that I've seen come out of other trainings is like risk versus success, right? No, risk versus danger. Risk and danger continuum. And so you're sort of looking at like, well, this is a jump that I'm capable of, but now I'm raising the context because height comes into play, and now all of a sudden it's got danger because I find it a bit
risk is the likelihood that you'll fail, and danger is the consequences.
The consequences,
right? So
right.
it's
success versus
an X and Y
price.
graph, right?
Right.
Yeah. Where the risk of your failure may be super low, but the consequence of your failure is you die. Right. In which case, that's just as scary as like, well, maybe not just as scary, but the risk that you succeed is very, very low, and the consequence is pretty minimal. Then those are right.
Yeah,
that's your graph.
And so using this graph, we can expose the novice parkour athlete's logical fallacy, which is if I can jump 4 feet, I can jump 4 feet at any height.
Yeah.
Which oftentimes I see people beating themselves up about and getting frustrated with, where they're like, look, on the ground I can do it. I can jump from here to there. To Dylan or higher level athletes, that's just data. If they go down and look at the gap at the street and they jump from one curb to the other and know that the alley is something they can physically, because they've measured it, right? Yeah. And they're like, oh, I know I can physically reach that. That's different than a new person being like, see, you can jump between here and there. So surely we can take this up higher, even like 4 or 6 feet or 4 or 6 stories.
What was that coaching crime? You got it? What was that?
Was it the YOLO?
Or Huck It Harry?
Huck It Harry?
Maybe Huck It Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think YOLO coach would be like, yeah, we're doing it. Like, you can jump 4 feet. I know you can jump 4 feet now. We know you can jump 4 stories at 4 feet.
Yep.
Totally YOLO coach. Let's do it.
YOLO coach. You're right.
And there's a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Huck It Harry doesn't know he can make it yet.
Sure does.
He's getting his data in the field.
So to think that you can just measure a jump and then take it in any context is really where the depth and skill of parkour is. That's the meat of it. You've got the bare minimum precursor to be like, I can jump 4 feet, so I can jump 4 feet in any context. Like, it's the context that makes it the art. And
theoretically, you can, right? if you can jump 4 feet at minimal effort on the ground, you can theoretically jump 4 feet in just about any context that's not, making that jump itself physically harder, right? Like there's not like wind pushing you back, or you're not weighing extra, or the surface isn't slick, right? Like if you were to take just the exact same thing and put it anywhere in the world at any height, theoretically, yes, you can. But
you're not a robot.
But you're not a robot.
You're not a robot.
And those things, just the visual stimulus difference affects the way that mechanically you're going to perform that move sometimes. And that's where like high level parkour athletes really rise, is that they're like, no, in spite of all of these other stimuluses that I'm getting, I'm going to perform the move the same way that I always do, with the same quality that I always do at, safe nominal levels.
I think the movement in context is the depth of parkour ability, because it's similar to like, you can sing in the shower.
But can you sing on stage?
Right.
Yeah.
But you sung in the shower. You remembered the lyrics were very simple, and you sounded very beautiful to yourself. Now sing on stage. Well, theoretically, you knew the lyrics and you sung, but could you actually sing? The only thing that's changing is the context. But that's where we see the on it. So there's some ways to build that I think is healthy, and I think the biggest thing is repetition. Like repetition,
and
slow repetition. Have as many wins as you can in a given at a given distance, and then changing that context up. But winning continuously is a very big deal.
Yeah. If you always build up slowly, and you ever have a failure halfway up to your transition to a move, you can always go just a step back down where you're confident. So if you have those little progressions and you're having all these little tiny wins in between the big one that you're searching for, then there's not too much risk if you mess up on one of them.
It's a lot like your plateau theory that we were talking about when it comes to like maintaining a high level of skill, right? Like if you have all of these successes that you've worked on up to this point, and then you fail at this point, if you skip to that peak of the mountain and then you fall all the way.
Back
and
down.
why? Because
Even
that's how
further.
Trauma works. Trauma's like, we're setting you back to square one or as far back as we can, because your brain's like survival, right?
Yep.
We failed, it hurt, we didn't like it, let's survive. But if you have all of these little levels, these little plateaus, like you said, that you've worked up to, that you've had successes to, when you fall, your brain's like, we'll go to the next level. And if that next level is very close to where you currently were operating, then you don't fall very far, right? But we see it all the time when we teach adults and children back tucks, right? Like they go through the entire workshop, and finally we're going for the attempts, right? And you have to be very cautious as a coach of being like, okay guys, we're gonna go for full attempts, because half the group will just yeet right there on the spot. And you're like, wait, no, I meant over here. We're watching you
Now?
right now. Okay, no, you said it. And so then they go for it, and then if they bail on that, it's done. That
Right, because they usually can survive that and not have a major injury, but the psychological impact of falling out of a backflip is very, very taxing.
Yeah. For somebody who's not used to it, right? Like now, I all three of us could go down on the floor and bail as many backflips as we want, and then
wouldn't break a
perform
heart,
a perfect one right after, because one, we've just had so much experience with it already. That well of successes is much deeper than our well of failures. But yeah, so you have to do small, tiny, micro progressions that you're going to be successful on a bunch of times before you get up to these big roof gaps.
So a major thing is...
Or box jumps.
Or box jump. Yeah, because it's different for everybody, right? For a toddler, I remember in Estes, when way back when we were kids, I have no clue how old I am. There's this little cobblestone wall.
Yeah, I remember.
And it goes up maybe 6 feet. Right?
Yeah.
It's
Some of them do go high.
Some of them go high, but I remember the spot.
This one was 6
because I've driven by it before, and I was like, why does that wall look so familiar?
Is it a retaining wall of sorts?
Yeah, it's like a little retaining wall that builds up. But I remember it starts very low and it builds up as the hill goes down.
Okay.
Right? And I remember as a kid, we were there with, mom and dad, and I was walking up the wall, and I get to a height where I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared now. And the family's like, well, my dad's actually probably head level with me, right? Because he's a tall guy and I'm little. And so I'm standing there and he's like, jump. And I remember being so afraid to jump, and my dad's like, jump, right?
Yeah,
and like he was like so nonplussed by the fact that like I'm scared of this jump. And in my little head, I'm like, this is insane.
Jumping through the
what
world.
do you mean jump? Just jump. I mean, eventually I did jump, but I went back then as an adult and I see the wall and I'm like, it's 4 feet, right?
Yep.
But in my perspective at that age and my experience at that age was so minimal that that's incredibly taxing, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be different for everybody. You could be a 20-year-old male who, you know, is used to like skydiving, but then you come in a parkour gym and jumping from one rail to another rail at 2 feet high is absolutely terrifying for you.
Yeah.
Or you
and it
could
probably
be
should be. It requires a lot of
it
calibration.
should be. Or you could be a 7-year-old woman who's like, you know, never done anything in her life, and you know, doing a giant on a bar for the first time is like not that scary for you, and it should be.
Yeah,
right?
you don't know where that calibration is. So let's talk about a couple of key things, right? So calibration to me means that there's enough volume in that moment that you have an understanding of the context of where you are. Meaning, there's a reason that, if possible, sometimes parkour athletes will go and feel out surfaces. Like I remember early on, just because you can see something doesn't mean you can do it. So if you see something and you see yourself doing it, doesn't always mean you can do it. What I mean by that is there's just some data that gets to the body by touching things. There's like different layers of the brain that are working here. And if I reach out and I touch something with my foot, I've just given another sensory input to my brain.
Like Justin, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Justin over here, he always touches the microphone.
I haven't touched with this once this time, right?
I think it was the scrubbing your shoe next to the microphone.
Yeah. Rubbing your shoe right.
I apologize.
Anyways, sorry, yeah. So touching surfaces.
Right. So that's why, you know, not relying exclusively on the visual elements of the vestibular system, but going and like touching and familiarizing yourself with reach and feeling, that gives you context. Spending time in that space, not under pressure, also gives you context. So as much time as you can spend like sort of in the area, familiarizing yourself with it, feeling more friendly in relationship to it versus just showing up and hitting stuff, you can do that. But those first attempt, you know, breaking the jump moments are, again, higher level skill. That's the culmination of a lot of volume into a very, very astute intuition and type of intelligence in parkour. For most of us, we need to get in and touch surfaces and lean up against them and kick them a little bit and push them and feel what the top looks like, hop around a little bit on them in order to really learn. And so I guess for calibration, I would say doing, you know, these primers or these timers, movements beforehand, before doing jumps is actually a really good thing. And a lot of times when you guys watch videos online, you see all the successes, but you don't see maybe the 10 attempts. Although it's become more trendy to share your 20 near-death fails before you got the stick, right? Like, but, you know, at first glance, you just assume you can do it. Making sure you're strong, so that's one thing there. Could you guys say anything more about calibration? Like, what do you guys do to calibrate?
I would actually, I mean, I hate timers.
So what's a timer? I think that term, I'm not super happy with timer. I prefer primer, but we use timer in parkour is pretty consistently.
So it's like if you're looking to jump a gap, and you can reasonably jump the gap and fail, or like intentionally do the jump, but not with the intention of like landing it, but just with the intention of figuring out like what's my 80% effort to get, or like where does 80% effort get me? Yeah, to a bounce back, or just like just distance wise, right? Those things are pretty common. You'll see people like do a running jump and they'll just jump like halfway and land. I don't like them. I think you're giving yourself false data. I think timers can be done successfully, but I think the majority of the time they're done incorrectly, because then you're just wiring a pattern that's not a success. When you go for a timer, if you do one and then you're like, cool, yep, I got it, I'm gonna hit it now. That's a high level athlete. That's somebody who was missing a piece of data. They're like, I don't know quite, so I'm gonna get a little data. Okay, cool, I got my data, I know I can get it. But what you see are new athletes, and they just timer and 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 timer, and then 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they're still freaking hitting timers, and they've just wired in their brain, a timer.
Yep.
They've never wired the jump at all.
Or
so now even if they go for it, their brain's like, oh yeah, we've done this 40 times now. So I know exactly what to do. It's fail midway through the jump, right? And so I don't think timers are a successful way for a new athlete to do it. I think measure it, look at it, touch it, feel it, lick it, smell it, whatever you got to do to the jump to like get your data. Go somewhere else, do your timers on a similar distance, then come back and be like, cool. And if you need one more timer on that spot, then you can do it to get your final data, but then you need to go for it. And if you're not going to go for it, then you got to like square up to yourself and be like, I'm not ready for this, and back off. It's not like concrete walls are just going to magically disappear next week or something like that. I mean, sometimes they do, but rarely, right? You can always come back to it. So that would be my suggestion is it's like, if you're calibrating, it's calibrate away from that spot. Now, if it's something at height, just climb on top of it and just stand there. If I'm doing a workshop with teens or adults and we're doing balance at height, I always, before I even let them walk on the rail, I just have them stand on top of the tower.
Yeah.
And I have them do air squats on top of the tower. I have them like spin in a slow circle. I have them look up. I have them look down. And then I have them get off the box.
Yep.
Right? And they're like, I'm ready to walk it. And I'm like, nope, you're just going to climb up there. You're going to stand. You're going to, calibrate with that height. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to come back down. Right? Yeah, and then if I need them to, I'll have them do a successful timer where they walk the rail at lower height and then go back up there. But I would never have them like walk up at height, go halfway to the bar, and then just jump off. Like, that's not a successful timer.
No, that's not successful coaching. I like what you're saying too, because it reinforces the when I did some golf lessons a long time ago, right? And and I remember I'd come out and just like a batter or something, I'm just like kind of swinging at the dirt, just like warming up here. And that particular coach was like, no, you don't make poor golf swings because you're reinforcing the habit of swinging like that.
Yep.
So when you come out to swing, you can do it with less intensity, but your intention should be to be successful in the swing. And I think that translates exactly to jumping, what you're saying. We get far too used to failing in these attempts.
Yep.
And
so
I think that the key to that is, so what's the solution? Because obviously you can't just make every single jump a win or a loss and absorb the consequences of just falling out of a jump and a bail when just to determine how far you can make it on something. That's where I think the progressions and learning bounce backs and aborts as a skill is important. Because if you make one, like, you should be able to look at something, and I'm going to go out and say that you just should, if it's that scary for you and you're assuming you're not disillusioned and just thinking you can hit that jump. Like, we've been out training before, and I remember random people on the street who are younger just come up and attempt the jumps that we're doing. Because remember that in like Old Town, we'd see people just like run up and just like do it, and then they'd look like they broke their ankles or something, and they'd walk off and be like, "Cool, bro. Like, we're not just out here throwing ourselves at walls." So, be able to do and train the bounce back or the abort of the technique, and then you don't have to worry about a timer because your attempt is intentional. You're going for it. And if you bounce back, that's one of the coolest parts about parkour is because we have that skill set.
Yeah, being able to throw a true attempt and safely and almost stylishly.
Always style.
I missed it.
Always with style. It is the fact that if you like a novice or a beginner will look at the objective of the jump and then it's binary. I have this very small, we'll call it, let's use bloom here.
Like first,
you know, like bloom, right? Or we'll say the hitbox is really small, right? It's very, you know what I'm saying? Like,
just got some trauma right there.
Right, exactly. So you've got
shooters with bloom.
So you have the little space where things can work out, and maybe that's only 8 inches by 10 inches, and that's where stuff can work out. As a parkour athlete and being really competent, that should bleed out into feet, into ideally everything surrounding the surface, so that if you come up short, you know how to hit and to land on any of those surfaces. And if it's a flat wall, you just bounce back, right?
Yep.
That's where the true wisdom comes from the jump. So that's one way to alleviate the fear, in that there isn't only 10 inches either way or a foot either way of success, right? Because that's the way people will look at it and be afraid, right? Why would you be afraid if you knew you could hit any of those surfaces?
Yeah, and if you train, I don't want to say train bails as a skill, but I guess that's the way to phrase it easy. Yeah, if you train those, you increase. I'm just summarizing what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You increase your margin for error, or I guess not margin for error. You increase your window of error that you can successfully come out of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the amount of, it's like a handstand, right? Where like when you teach people a handstand, if you can get them right in a perfect shape and then let go, they'll stay there. But if you move them 1 degree off of that perfect shape, they fall, right? But if you train them in this whole range of motion of like how to successfully get into a handstand and come out of it, now their window for success, I've seen Justin do it, where he'll go into a handstand and then his legs come all the way down here and he goes into like a tuck planche and then he's like, nope, it's like back in my handstand, right? Because he has such a wide range. of margin for error just seems like the best one, but margin for success maybe is a better term, that he can pull from. He'll be like, oh, no, actually I can get it to there. And I think it's the same thing with challenges that you're afraid of. If you're like, well, I can't hit this precision, but I know I can crane it. Or if I can't crane it, I can cat leap it. If I can't cat leap it, I can cat back from it, or, cat abort. And if I miss it completely, I know I can land and roll, or, catch the wall, whatever, right? You have such a larger margin for success. And I deem success being you don't get injured.
So I think how you practice that really matters, because this is where it goes wrong with people who are like, it becomes just like martial arts, where it's like, oh, well, I practiced my parkour roll, okay? And I'm just saying this is a general trend I see across parkour gyms and with parkour athletes, where they're like, I have practiced my roll, so I know how to roll out of anything. It's like the martial artist who's like, grab the wrist, break the wrist, right? But those guys should really do. I mean, how much time are they spending grabbing wrists, though? Like, just that's what you should really be doing is grabbing wrists if we really want to understand how to grab wrists and do it with intent, right? And so when we bail and we practice our bails, the bails shouldn't, in my opinion, be these dramatic failures where we're sort of pontificating about how you might crash out of something. I think that's very hard to predict.
Oh, yeah.
You're better off training things really strictly, like bounce backs, like your cataboards, like going monkey plant, reverse monkey plant on bars, on boxes, understanding how to like catch stuff in a crane at velocity without hitting yourself, running and jumping off of walls that are vertical or at slant. Like that's where you're really going to start to learn, because you want to do those safely instead of having this major gap in between where it's like you practice precision jumps and then you practice nasty falls off of rails and whatever, and there's this huge space between, which is bringing like application into reality, right?
Yeah.
Everything else is just like, it kind of feels sometimes like it's just fantasizing.
It's like training boxing without ever having been hit in the face.
Right.
Like which boxer is it that was like, your training's all, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially your training is great and your plans are great until you get in the ring and somebody punches you in the mouth.
And then everything goes out.
And then everything goes out the window, right? And it's like, if you've never been punched in the face before, you're going to be an awful boxer. Because as soon as you get punched in the face, you're just like, right. I didn't like that at all. And parkour can be very similar in that, like, if you train your falls and your rolls in a controlled, in vitro environment like a gym, and then you go out in vivo environment, right? You bail, it hurts. It's never like a, that was smooth and buttery. Sometimes it is, in which case then it's like a golf clap. But for the most part, it's like, ow, that hurt a lot, and I'm happy that I didn't crack my skull or break a bone, right? And you can't practice that in a gym, because if you are, you are intentionally damaging yourself.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with you. It's like, but if you train the specific skill that you might use out of the bail as a skill, rather than as this like ninja warrior, this seesaw table is going to flip me, and then somebody's going to shove me, and then another person's going to come out of the air and throw a ninja star at me. Like,
very high level.
So complicated that
vis-a-vis drill.
Yes.
And get context, get feeling. I just want to use a V word because you got to use it twice. That was impressive. I want to triple kill.
I think, and in terms of the the bails where it's like, oh, I'm gonna spin around, and I feel like falling backwards is the worst one for parkour, because it's very hard once you're parallel in the air. How you get out of the position is not taught by a skill that you can drill. So that's why I feel like you do need a little bit of the acrobatics, and you need parallel twisting.
I was just gonna say tricking is really good at that.
Yeah, and forward and backwards, inversion, so front flips and back flips, because those ones you just can't train. Once your feet hit your shoulder height, so for swinging or for a bounce back where your feet are too high and your chest never made it past your hips, from that point, once you're parallel, you need flips to fully understand how to get out of that situation.
Or a tail.
Yeah. Or a tail.
So maybe the future parkour, at what's it called, at prosthetic, is not the legs, it's a tail.
That would be sick. Don't get me started on that stuff.
There's a robot tail.
They get all excited.
Sorry.
And I start thinking about altered carbon, and I want to get a new sleeve.
Just saying, like a robot tail is probably very attainable.
Work very well because we're such vertical beings.
Well, you just have to learn how to train it, right? So the tail would do what it needed to do, and you just need to know how to ride the tail.
It's pretty feasible too, because it would just strap here, and then it would go you'd have a casing that goes up along the spine, and then straps up under here like a harness.
Yeah, it just be
that
would
give it its stability to manipulate along your spine. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Actually,
I think it's a really cool idea. Oh man, we're back to Nightcrawler, who I really like.
So our next startup is going to be a prosthetics company.
Prosthetic tails. Hey, we're going to beat you to it, Japan.
Japan's already over there. Some dude
Japan's
whipping his tail in anger already.
I have 9 tails.
Hey, careful though. Our market might turn into furries.
Yeah.
If that's how we got to fund a cool parkour tail, I'd fund it anyway. That's fine.
Do we have some furries here? Telling you.
Dude, they're everywhere. And hey, you know what? It makes you happy. It makes you happy, right?
But yeah, so there you go. The parkour tail. That really sidetracked me. Woo! Hold on, derail. I gotta pick my bike up off the trail, climb back to the trail now, fit my little shoes in again, and get to a Holland. Okay, so so we talked about context, and then we talked about training for confidence, and I think that's volume, drilling with volume. The other thing is that the other side of fear is trust, right? I feel like over time we can gain trust in ourselves by doing things again and again and not experiencing getting beat up about it, right? So you just have to take it down to what that, if you do a bail out of a backflip or bail off of a lache, that might mean that you're going back and you're just going to hit, 20 laches at the most basic level and bounce back and do that until your body, because your body has to begin to trust your intentions again. And your body is definitely there to stop you sometimes.
Yeah. You're talking post bail here?
Yeah, post bail.
Yeah, I think post bail is the hardest form of fear to get because you've made the memory. It's solidified.
And it's very fast.
And you just don't forget fear. This is not the way that we were evolved to handle. You were supposed to pass it on generation to generation.
You watch your friend die from the inside out from eating that one berry, and you remember the color, shape, and smell of that berry.
And that's why I can't eat cilantro, because I'm pretty sure ancestors were poisoned by some kind of soap plant.
And now the flavor similarity, the chemical similarities of the plants just get you.
Yep.
But yeah, you have to.
I don't like cilantro either.
Oh,
just not as aggressive.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know.
I'll just eat it, and then
I'm just
if I have
so
if I'm, take it out if I feel effort. But so you have to take that. You have to take that memory back out. I think a lot of people want to stuff it down.
How do you do that? Because there's this risk of training on something that's injured. Even when I was training, for me, if I hit something, and maybe it's just an age thing, although I don't think it really is, and I tweak something or I bail out of something, I'm like, whack, and I'm might have some sort of repercussion from that, I'm just going to stop training that day and work on my PTSD later, because I think that the further risk of me having poor judgment or why it was I failed, it depends on what the stakes are, but
if there was pain in your bail, then I would certainly, you're going to have to deal with that later. But if it was just fear, so if you're working on something and you did a successful bail and you just were in a position that you were terrified of, which I think happens a lot.
Yep.
like a backflip where you do it and you land on your knees, or maybe a box jump where your toe slipped out, but you but you survived. Maybe you just stepped over it, but you're still afraid of that precision from now on. I think you have to get to as close as that exact same drill as you can, but with a lot less risk involved in drill. So something that's very low, but you have to rewrite over the memory because you can't delete it. It's there forever. So you have to pull it out and you just have to associate it with other wins. And I like to do that as soon as possible because it's just so easy to soak up the fear and just like get addicted to it and let it sit there and hover around in it. But you have to fight it and you have to push it back out and associate with other things and other wins and other good feelings because it'll stick forever. I still have a backflip fail when I hit my head on a box and I needed staples on my head. Even though I wasn't afraid of it, I hit my head, I sprayed blood everywhere, and
when was this?
This is back in Boulder.
Yeah,
teaching
year 2 or 3, I think, of training. And blood's everywhere, and I'm like laughing at it because it didn't hurt. And I pass out afterwards, and I go to get staples, and I still have fear of that. I do pass out a lot. It's always in the morning. It's if I don't get breakfast. And so I still have to battle that fear even now because I didn't rewrite it. I didn't think I did backflips off a wall until a year or 2 later after that. So it's a very easy skill for me, but I still have to work on that memory. So don't make that mistake that I did.
Part of your like backflip program executable like files, like first one is like fear, and you're like no.
Yes.
And then the other files load up.
Yep.
Right? Because you didn't go in and change that code.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say
no patches, just nid patch then.
No patch, right? You just merge complex.
So it just has to be. That's why it's very good to have a million progressions, because you just go down 1 or 2 steps from whatever you bailed or whatever scared you, and you just do that a lot. Like you said, repetition. I think you just got to do it over and over and over again, and then you can't get stuck there too, because if you get stuck there again, that fee you have to make it back to that point, otherwise it'll just never go away. So
I think that where you should be when you're working from confidence forwards and not from fear backwards. I think it's a generally risky and poor approach to go find something you're afraid of and then try and work against that fear in general. I think it's better to try and find something you're confident in and then extend that outward as a general practice.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions to this. But in general, I don't like it's what is that? This is the mad scientist coach or whatever, where you're just like, oh, well, let's find something you're afraid of and then do it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, what if the fear is legitimate or the fear inhibits your ability to actually do what you're already capable of?
Which fear does almost all of the time.
Almost all the time.
It's its job.
Yep.
And so there's also, I would like to say there's something deeper that's like a subroutine that is what the more primal self is capable of doing and has been trained, and sometimes the mind can get in the way of that. So I think that there is an opportunity for mindfulness meditation to alleviate fear. Yep. And that basically just means like the mindfulness meditation of putting attention on something and then realizing its impermanence and then knowing that it's not completely real and then making a decision, or that it's temporary, and then making decisions from those places psychologically. Mm-hmm. That I think is, because believing that this you're talking about building fear up like it's a thing that you get addicted to or that always shows up, and feeling like you don't have control over it. I would see if you're a person who trains like that. I don't have major issues like that personally, but it has gotten in the way of my training before. And so something I've done is just to realize its impermanence, right? To really focus on it, look at it, let it go away, and then make a better, clear-headed decision about what I'm going to actually practice and do. Short-term hacks to get over fear. Like, I feel like sometimes music helps me. Like, it can get me in a zone. That's a short-term thing. You always don't want to lean on that. Being with friends. And then also, like, context that you've trained prior. Because when I was younger, I spent a lot of time playing and alone outside. And what I would say is definitely the spirit of parkour in exploration and risk-taking and whatnot. The discipline might not have been as refined. But when I was younger, I always thought I was some sort of like X-Men character, jumping over barns and climbing in the woods and being alone in very in situations I wouldn't want maybe even to train alone again in the future. So like that's baked into me from when I was a wee lad. And what was very interesting to me when I started training parkour in context is that I started training in gyms, and that felt different to me. The surfaces felt different. But then when I took that back outside and I went outside, either in forests or more like outside environments, for some reason I felt twice as good because I had already done a bunch of repetition in nature. Like somehow my brain was familiar with that context of what branches and leaves or outside stuff, dirt and things felt like, and I felt more courageous in that environment. So do you guys have environments where you are more courageous, and what would you atone to that?
I'll huck at Harry just about anything in a gym.
Yeah, gyms. I'll just mat it up. If I'm talking about short-term hack, I'll just mat that thing. Mat everything.
Mat that bad boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it, and like as far as like any sort of acrobatic skills, like I'm so supremely confident that I can bail out of any position that like for flips, literally the only thing that prevents me from doing a flip is that my CNS just doesn't know how to do the flip, but I'll chuck it. Somebody is like, hey, try this flip. I'm like, I'll chuck it because I'm just not worried about it. As far as like hacks, when I'm afraid, I don't know. I think we've talked about this before where my entire purpose for doing parkour is to enjoy it. And sometimes like that fear will pop up and I'm like, this isn't fun for me. And pushing through this fear, it doesn't make me a better sibling, doesn't make me a better business partner, it doesn't make me a better spouse or person. And I just don't want to put energy into it sometimes. So sometimes the hack is literally like, do I actually need to push through this? And for some people that answer is yes, because they tie their identity so much to their skill as a parkour athlete. And that's great. If that's you, that's you. For me, I tie my identity so much more to the people around me. And so if I do encounter something that's genuinely terrifying for me, I'll just be like, you know what? I'm the same person, whether I do this or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes that gets rid of the fear. And it's like, you're right. Like whether I do this or not is irrelevant. So, and I just want to do it. So then I'll do it. Or half the time I'm like, so it's not worth the effort for me to put this in when I could go do something else more fun and then be home in 20 minutes, enjoying time with my wife, rather than sitting here for an hour grinding this skill out.
That sounds like, if you're solo, I feel the same. Yeah. I'm not going to go out and do a fear challenge on my own, especially if it's like a high skill, like challenge that's inherent in the obstacles that I'm in, where it's a jump between things. Because I know if I do it and I beat the fear, it's going to be a very small win for me in the long term. Yeah. But if I'm doing challenges like that with friends that are scary, like going to an abandoned sugar beet factory, there is something about that fear that is pretty fun to experience with people. Yeah. But that's usually low risk, and it's usually not as
it's like
dangerous.
It's like jumping off the roof, right? With the mats. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like you could definitely do that by yourself. And it would be scary and intimidating.
Which we did force Jesse to do it by himself.
Yes. Did you do it?
So we've jumped off the gym twice now without Jesse, and
That's because you just get squirrely.
I said,
Justin does get squirrely. He straight up is just like he walks into the gym, and I don't know if it's like he smells like cinnamon. He's like, today's the day we jump off the roof. Everybody, we're jumping off the roof today.
It's catnip.
Let's go. And doesn't, dude, it's the catnip for sure. The cat's like at 3 a.m. is like, I'm going to play.
Yeah.
And howl. And then he runs around the house howling. And you're like, why? You've had all day to howl and scream, to jump off the roof. But that's Justin. But no, I haven't done this one yet. But my point being, like, it's significantly more fun with other people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I would say the best thing that I like about fear in parkour is that it helps you control your thoughts. If you have that fear, you do have to develop a certain control over what you are allowing into your mental state, and you just won't make it very far if you can't control that fear and that intoxicating status that it has on you. So you have to learn very quickly how to shut it off or walk away from it. But I think if you're doing it right, you'll learn the technique of controlling your thoughts, and it's just like you feel the fear, you identify it, and you work on switching gears immediately.
You make a resolution.
That is a very useful skill. that transfers far outside parkour, right? That's like, oh, I identify I'm angry right now. What is it? And now I'm going to switch off of it. So that's my favorite thing about fear. But I don't think I developed it solely through parkour. That's, another life skill.
That's video games.
Video games, they certainly can, yeah.
You're like, you know what? I'm just going to quit before I break something.
But yeah.
No, I did.
So I don't. That's not a short-term hack though. You can't just do that. Like that's especially in fear. You have. I had to do that with other things. I had to learn how to do that with I don't know, like simple things. I feel like I do it with hunger. When I feel hungry, I'm like, okay, I'm hungry, and now I'm gonna try to just
note it.
Just for the next 1 or 2 minutes, I'm gonna shut off my hunger. Exactly. I love it. Noted. Thank you for telling me that I'm hungry. I'm not gonna think about it now for the next minute or two. And I'm just those little small things, and those help me with the much larger problems of fear.
But that's mindfulness. You're unwittingly practicing a discipline.
Yep.
Yes.
At that point.
Like anybody who owns cats is very good at that. Like the cat walks in and is like, "Rah!" You're like, noted.
Noted.
And the cat's like, and then they come back around and they start knocking stuff off, and then you're like, all right, fine, it's real now. I get it.
One other one that I think we can kind of wrap up on, but is object as bully. Like, have you guys ever had something, and this is sort of like, oh man, you can make it a Legend of Korra reference. There's so many good references here for this, but essentially it's like, if you had a challenge in the gym here, or in a place where you trained consistently, or only trained in this place, that you were afraid of, then you go somewhere else to a new gym or a new environment, and you hit something that's bigger because you're around your friends. I've experienced this before, where you get the energy, or usually traveling in parkour helps with this, and training with other people helps with this. And you see someone doing it, you do it, and it's not a big deal, and you're like, oh wow, I hit that. That was pretty good. And you come back to your old training spot, and you realize that what you were afraid of in the past now is like, you're not even afraid of it anymore, because it was actually like, a third of the size of the thing that you just did, or you know what I mean, like that. So, have you guys ever had have you ever had in the gym and a bully like that, a feature bully, where you were like, I can't get that, and then you go somewhere else and get something else and come back and defeat it? Or is there something in this gym or a gym that's easy to understand that bullies you?
Now.
Yeah.
Is it you have something that bullies you?
There's just no. I don't think there are, because I have a pretty good handle on what my maximum effort is in parkour in the related area. So when I see something that's gonna be a bully, who tries to be a bully, I just know I can't do that on just any regular day. It's like a prime day.
You want to fight me?
Those are usually laches.
Why?
Like, I just really want laches, but I just know that they're so difficult for me to grab. Those like same level prees. So
no, that's why you don't build me any same level prees.
So you've never had anything in the gym that you couldn't do, did something somewhere else, came back, and then it was easy?
Well, that would assume that I had it here.
Let's say a gym.
Right? Because this is my home gym. I haven't been to another gym so much where the challenge was like...
So you're a master of home gym. We used to train between like 3 gyms. Denver, Boulder, and up here.
Yeah.
Jesse? He has no bullies.
No, I have bullies. I just don't... I just know that they're not...
We just mastered apathy. Like, as athletes, we've just mastered apathy. Like, when something's difficult, we're just like, next thing.
All right.
And then somebody's like, but wait, don't you feel regret for not accomplishing that? And you're like, no.
That's good.
Maybe, I definitely had that before, for sure.
Yeah.
That was backflip off ledges.
Yeah, backflip off ledges.
Which is funny, because it's like, in principle, such an easy skill.
Oh,
but
yeah.
That's power of trauma, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I want to wrap up with, if you're a coach, keep in mind that injuries and bails and those sorts of things, they are trauma, which is a very dense psychological topic. You're welcome to research it. In fact, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out recently about it. And know that it is highly variable from person to person. So if you get an athlete and they roll an ankle and they're like, oh, and you're like, come on, it's like, is your ankle fine? And they're like, yeah, it doesn't hurt, but I thought I broke it. Some kids do that. And they're terrified to do a very small jump on the ground. Just know that, like, that may seem really silly and dumb to you, but to them, to their perspective, that trauma is very deep and very powerful. And you'll have to rewire that. And you'll get kids or adults or teens that are the opposite of that as well, where they just like crack their skull and they're bleeding and they're like, I'm gonna try it again, and you're like, whoa, whoa, slow down there.
Yeah.
So and then as athletes, there's absolutely no shame in being like, I'm too scared to attempt this thing and walking away from it. And if you never circle back, I won't think less of you.
Yeah.
And nobody else should either. Yeah. Because you know what? Like, you are more than that jump. And you are far more than your fear. So if you walk away from a jump because you're like, I'm worried I might die, that's smart.
Also, if you crush it at a later time and come back, that's your victory. Don't come and like wave it over everybody else's head. You know, I was afraid of that, and then I just did it and I got it. And so
don't be a fear bully.
Oh, it's kind of fear bully. We need a new name for that.
We'll come up with that. Yeah, the person who's like, oh yeah, come on, you scared of it?
Go you gotta do it. You guys are afraid. You gotta do it.
You gotta do it like 103 times. That's what your brain needs to wire the synapses correctly, or whatever bro science they've come up with these days around that.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's also why I don't like music. I don't think music should be used to fight fear.
Because it becomes your fear bully?
Yeah. Well, it's also really easy to just do things because the music is really loud.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's a tool. It's not your tool.
No.
Justin doesn't like angle grinders either.
I already fumbled.
Oh, you cradled it?
I cradled it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The angle grinder to undo the trauma.
On your finger. I know that you didn't mean to hurt me.
All right, guys. Out of impulse.
Well, have a wonderful, fun, safe,
spooky
Halloween. If you're celebrating with friends and family, please be safe. Please be smart. If you're eating lots of candy, I don't know, sugar.
Balance it with protein.
There's no way to undo sugar. So just like make sure you're enjoying yourself. If you're eating candy and you're like, this is awful, don't do that. I want you to have fun and enjoy your candy eating. Okay. But otherwise, if you guys are listening to us, you can watch us on YouTube. And you can see our pretty faces and all of the gestures that we all make as we talk. Right now I'm scratching my ear, so you can see that if you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, you can listen to us, which is far more convenient if you're driving, running, working out, doing dishes, all that stuff. We are on Spotify and Apple and all sorts of places.
Podcast players, yeah.
Yeah, all the major podcast players. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.